Go live. Estamos en vivo. Ya está. Sacamos un tweet como siempre.
Okay,
y bienvenidos. Dani, Raúl, ¿cómo andan?
Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Con ganitas de ver lo que van a anunciar hoy.
Preparados, ¿no?
Preparados a tope, a tope.
A ver las sorpresas con las que nos pueden traer hoy y las que tenemos que empezar a aprender.
Claro. A ver, para ser sinceros, lo que hay que ver nuevo del código ya lo conocemos, está ahí, ¿no?
Sí,
Para
sí,
los que
sí.
hicieron cosas
Sí.
con Signals, hubo cambios, pero bueno, nada, contentos.
Pero bueno, dicen que sorpresas.
Hay sorpresas. ¿Qué serán las sorpresas?
Bueno, no sé, yo tengo una ligera idea.
Cositas.
Pero no vamos a hacer spoilers,
Toca ver cómo nos van a introducir esas sorpresas que hay.
A ver. Quedan 2 minutos para empezar el ¿no? ¿Vale?
Sí.
Muy bien. A ver, ¿quién tenemos por el chat?
Hola,
Gabriel. Hola, Alejandro. Hola, Leonardo.
Hay muchas.
Mira,
¿Hay audio, ¿Se escucha bien?
Sí.
Ahí está, vamos a poner full screen.
Sí, mejor.
La presentación no la conocemos. Así que
No, claro que no.
es 100% nuevo para nosotros. Gracias a todos los que vinieron al Watch Party. Vamos a estar acá comentando un poco por arriba.
Voy a
el
hacer
triángulo. El renacimiento. Saludos a Luis, a Gabriel, Alejandro, Leonardo, por ahí, que todos estuvieron ahí en el chat activos desde antes de que empezara algunos. Así que...
Early adopters.
Una buena musiquita.
Muy bonita la música, me gusta. Huele a evento Google.
Sí, muy evento Google.
Es muy evento Google, ¿no? Siempre se lo debe hacer como el mismo proveedor, ¿no? Porque es como siempre es la misma.
Hasta donde sé, por lo que nos comentaron algún día, hay un equipo en Google especializado durante todo el año en la creación de música y imagen corporativa.
No me digas, yo sabía lo de que tenían un equipo de vídeo y de edición, postproducción, etcétera.
No. Tienen diseñadores y músicos especializados para todo el evento. De hecho, por eso Google I.O. es tan espectacular y durante el año mantienen como el diseño del Google I.O., ¿no?
Ya te digo, no sabía que tenían también gente de música.
Tantos equipos que quieren hacer
Angular
cosas.
launched in 2016 as a way to help developers build modern web applications. Throughout its history, Angular has made millions of developers successful. We've been focused on improving performance and developer experience on the modern web, and our momentum includes a ton of new features. And later this week, we will release Angular v17.
Muy bien.
This renaissance deserves a modern identity that represents the velocity and stability our team is committed to. Today, we are ecstatic to launch Angular.dev, the future home for Angular developers.
Ahí estamos.
Angular.dev will be the new site, domain, and home for Angular development. The new site contains updated docs, tutorials, and guidance that will help developers build Angular's latest features.
Las animaciones son
Today's launch includes new and revised documentation on Angular's core features,
documentación, ¿no?
and reference
Colaborar en la documentación un poquito,
In the coming months, we will continue to collect feedback and improve the site with a ton of enhancements planned.
Mucho la documentación,
A cornerstone of the new docs is Angular.dev
Funciona bien, viene rápido.
interactive way to learn
Y todo
Angular
esto, ¿no? O sea,
directly in your
realmente
browser.
conocíamos la web desde antes,
Our new
colaborando,
tutorial
ayudando,
offers
comentando.
a quick conceptual model for learning or coming back
Mucho mejor las dos.
to Angular
Mucho mejor.
and a playground to experiment in.
Era una tarea
We will
pendiente
be
para mí de
building a
Angular, mejorar
robust cookbook
la
of additional
documentación para
tutorials,
las personas
taking
nuevas.
advantage of our new embedded tutorial infrastructure. The domain isn't the only thing new about Angular.dev. Today,
¿Cómo?
we're also releasing the new Angular logo.
Un momento, nuevo logo, ¿qué está pasando aquí? Ahí sacamos los logos nuevos.
A lot has changed since the HTML5 standard was
Tenía
first
un
released,
regalito,
including us.
Nuevo logo,
As Angular continues to explore and innovate on the web
Es raro el
platform,
nuevo logo.
this
Pero
new
me gusta.
logo will better represent our current efforts and future priorities. Angular's success is deeply connected to our community.
Este logo me
We
encanta.
know many of you have built your brands on top of ours.
Este es el Signal.
This logo is for
Perfecto, ¿no?
us and our community. So it's important for you to be able to update your brand as well. Check out our blog and angular.dev's press kit for more information on how we're working with the community to adapt the new logo as your own.
Da juego el nuevo logo.
I'll meet you on angular.dev. And welcome to the Angular Renaissance.
Muy bonita animación.
Ya está
Qué grande.
disponible.
Muy bien.
Hello, Angular community.
Parece Mark.
And wow, what a moment. You've just witnessed our new logo design and the fantastic new website, angular.dev. Welcome to the Angular v17 developer event. I'm Mark Thompson, and we're absolutely thrilled to have you here with us from all over the world. Now, speaking of here, we have our very own Emma Twersky in the building to tell us all about this new website, angular.dev. Now, be sure to put your questions for Emma in the chat so that way we can be sure to see what you're saying and answer your questions. All right, Emma, let's talk about angular.dev.
Let's do it.
Oye, mira.
This is such a big moment for the team. How are you
Bueno,
feeling?
nuevo logo.
I'm just so
Muy
excited
lindo.
that we
Vamos a
finally
decir,
get to
bueno, ahí
share
están
what
las
we've been
remeras.
up
Tenemos
to.
una remerita con el
Absolutely.
logo.
This has been a big secret
Son
to
las
have the
primeras que se
whole
hicieron.
while we work
Estas
in
son
open source. Tell
las
the
reals.
people
Canela.
what that was like.
Yeah,
Todo el
absolutely.
press kit
So obviously,
para
our
poder
team
hacer tu
is
propio logo
heavily
y
committed to
actualizarlo.
open source, and as soon as I get off
Y la
stage right now, we'll
documentación,
actually be
¿no?
going
Sí.
and open sourcing the entire repository that this was
La
built in.
documentación para mí
But
está
over the last 6
súper bien.
months, we've been building this in private and trying to make sure that what we open source is a fantastic representation of Angular v17 and where we're headed. So it's built with everything under the sun about what our team feels a good production Angular app would look like today.
Oh, so good, so good. Now, what motivated the team to create a new site? How did we know this was time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Esto no está
there's
en
like
vivo, ¿no?
a
Porque las preguntas
million
están medio
things that
hechas.
we were really excited
Estoy
and
leyendo un
wanted to
papel.
do differently in a
No,
new
dice un papel
documentation
mágico.
site. And obviously this is beta, so we're still going to learn and get feedback on maybe things that we can improve and do differently. It all comes down to making sure developers know what modern Angular is. So from the logo all the way down to every page of the documentation, we were really focused on making sure that every level of developer, if you haven't ever worked with the web before, all the way to like you're an expert and you know everything about Angular's internals, like there's something on this doc site that is meant specifically for you. So our tutorials, you helped
Angular 2
totally
Sí.
revise,
Publicada,
and you can now do
Sí, ya se puede entrar.
tutorials in the browser.
Sí, sí, estaba adentro viendo.
Full embedded learning environment. We have a playground for you to work with. Our docs guides are like completely overhauled, and we'll continue to overhaul them to really be in-depth guides. I mean, like everything under the sun, go to angular.dev and check it out.
And I want to touch on something that I think is really important for our community to know. You mentioned that this is modern Angular, but it's still the same Angular that our friends have known, but we've just changed the way some things worked on the website. And tell us more about what it means for it to be modern, but yet the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've talked about, Angular's priorities have always
También les
been
pasa a Angular.
performance and developer experience. We think Angular really hits that spot perfectly. And so over the last couple of versions, we felt like Angular's already sort of entered a new era, entered this renaissance.
La
And the
nueva
logo
era.
really like should represent that, right? It represents everything in v14, v15, v16, everything we're going to talk about today in v17, but it also represents everything about where we're headed. So it's not some new framework. It's not Angular v3. It's the same stable backwards compatibility
El meme,
framework
el
that
meme de
people
Raúl
know and
llegó.
love.
Llegó
But
el meme
it
de
also
Raúl,
represents the velocity of all of these new things that are changing, you know, cutting edge control flow, deferrable views, like all of these new things that we're bringing to the web, and even things that we haven't started working on, but we're excited to tackle next.
That's right. And I think some of the features that you hinted toward, like control flow, deferred reviews, friends at home, you do not want to miss that. Stick around for the show, and you just have to see what we're talking about. Your mind, listen, just put your hands on the side of your head. That way your brain doesn't fly out of your ear. It's going to be really amazing. All right, let's ask another question. Emma, what's the first thing developers should check out on the new site?
Sí.
It depends
Mientras
who
dice
you
el
are.
nuevo sitio, si actualizan el Web Store y el Visual Studio Code, ya está preparado para la nueva sintaxis, ¿no? Para el defer. Y miren que se nos une.
Una nueva
edición.
Vamos.
Bienvenido. ¡Ey! Ya vienes con la remera y todo.
Sí. Me parece que voy a tener que meter un cambio de imagen. Voy a girar la silla y aparezco con la nueva remera.
El gran Raúl y el gran Dani. Saludos y respetos de esta parte.
So if you're new to Angular, go to the Essentials Guide. Go to that small little section. It's about an hour of reading or less. And it'll really let you understand Angular and what it means, like how to build with Angular. If you really just like to code, go to the tutorial section and check out the totally brand new Learn Angular tutorial. Again, written from the ground up, and it's just a way to incrementally learn all of the tasks that you would need to do to be able to build as an Angular developer. I believe there's 22. And the really cool thing about that is like each step is totally encapsulated in itself, right? So like, if you know how to build components on Angular, skip the component steps. Just go to like, there's a new control flow step. Nobody here knows how to build a control flow. I just took the tutorial myself because we haven't even released control flow for developers. So you can go to each of those steps, do the developer tasks, fully in the browser. There's no local setup. There's like no pain points to getting started. So I think the tutorials and the essentials are probably the best.
Before we let's hear from our community. I'm sure they have a lot of feedback and a lot of thoughts. Let's take a couple of comments from our community. All right.
A ver ahí, vamos mejor, ¿no? No se nos pisan nuestras voces con...
Digo que entiendo que la documentación nueva está basada en módulos, finals y toda la parra nueva.
Correcto.
Ya no hacen nada de mención a todo lo anterior.
A usar módulos, por ejemplo.
Bueno, me parece lo correcto, porque yo creo que así quieren ir. No módulos, onless, yo creo que estos son las tres nuevas cosas que quieren ellos empujar un poco.
Sí, pero ¿sabes qué concepto de voz aún se mantiene? Porque, por ejemplo, está ahí. Entonces las personas en el mundo real te vas a encontrar con ellos. Y yo creo que es un ejemplo donde importan el force module, por ejemplo. Entonces,
es que...
A ver, van a hablar de iteration. Súbelo un poco.
A developer on the Angular team, and I'm here to share some wonderful news and latest updates on hydration in Angular. In version 16, we launched a developer preview for hydration, and so far, teams all over the world have been able to enjoy the performance and developer experience improvements it provides. Today, I am excited to announce that hydration in Angular is now stable and ready to be used by you and your teams in production. That's right, hydration is now production ready. We hope that you continue to leverage these powerful updates to Angular on the server experience, but that's not all. We've also wanted to give developers a better, smoother experience when creating applications that support server-side rendering and hydration. Today, we are announcing updates to NGNU that lets you create a server-side rendering, hydration-enabled application from the beginning.
Muy bien.
You no longer have to access steps.
Era hora, llegó.
When you create an application in Angular version 17, you have the option to pass the SSR flag directly to NGNU. Don't worry if you forget to specify the flag with NGNU. You will now be prompted to include it in your project setup.
Sí, pero ojo,
we've also done some behind the scenes
rendering con
developers using SSR
server component.
ESM support for server builds. So now developers can use ESM modules in their server-side code. We know that everyone loves performance upgrades, so we have improved builds for server bundles. and we have added some SSR dev server improvements. All right, that's all the updates I have for SSR and hydration in Angular. Be sure to try out these features and let us know what you think. To get started, run ng-update. Thank you for watching.
Miedo,
Now go ng-update.
Ahora todos hacer ng-update. Ya.
On the server continues to be improved, and we really hope that you like what we've done so far. Now, to tell us more, please welcome Alan, Jessica, and Andrew from the Angular team. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Alan. Welcome. All right, let's just get into it because I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure that our audience at home has a lot of questions. Jessica, why has the team put so much effort into improving the Angular server-side story?
Well, to be honest, server-side rendering has just been becoming more of a priority in the web framework ecosystem across the board, and you're seeing that across all the frameworks. But to be honest, a lot of people have just been asking us to do it, so we put a lot more effort into actually doing work on server-side rendering.
Fantastic. Hey, Andrew, I got a question for you. Tell us more about the performance improvements. Who will they affect and how can we take advantage of
esto en la misma sala.
No, porque, claro, Alain, si no me equivoco, vive en Europa.
Ah, ya.
Volvió a Europa, mejor dicho.
Vale. Bueno, no me digas que no
Mucha gente pregunta sobre
el canal
so, Alon, why don't you take this sobre el tema de reducciones con
Sure. So in version 17, we have implemented the ES build and beat pipeline. So users can leverage these two powerful build tools to have faster incremental build times and reduce build times. We also now output ESM modules by default. And for new applications, we have enabled hydration by default.
Una recomendación, no hable cuando estén muteados, okay?
Fantastic. All right, Andrew, do we have you back here?
Por favor.
Okay, so that's all right. Let's go to Jessica. Jessica, tell us more about what's next for Angular SSR and the server-side story.
¿Qué sigue?
You bet. So we are looking to improve compatibility for non-node environments. So you can deploy Angular apps basically all over in your favorite cloud providers. And one big thing that's we're very excited about is progressive hydration. That's next up on our hydration story that we're looking forward to. And then we're also exploring streaming, HTTP streaming. So that's very exciting, and we're looking forward to all of this.
Fantastic updates. I love all of this. Right then, Alon, tell me this. We had SSR, but we also had this thing Angular Universal before. Can we help people understand what's the status of Angular Universal?
So yeah, so Angular Universal have been migrated and merged into the Angular CRI repository, and as part of that, we have renamed the packages and combined them into a single package named @Angular/SSR.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Well, let's actually take some feedback from our audience here. All right, so Dinesh says, is SSR primarily catered towards low-powered devices, or is it for everyone?
I guess I can answer this. It's really for everyone.
¿Dónde están leyendo?
It's something that's designed to improve your initial load. So it will help low-powered devices and people with slower speeds, but it improves everybody's initial load. So it's really for everyone.
And Jessica, to follow up on that, I think that the changes that we've made to how when you build a new app, and like Alon mentioned, that you can scaffold out your server-side work, really does reinforce that idea that it is for everyone, because we're making it even easier for you to opt in from the beginning.
That's absolutely right, Mark.
Por sobre Analog.js.
Fantastic. Let's hear another question from our audience.
Buena pregunta.
Okay, will local change detection be available in version 17? So while this isn't directly related to SSR, can we give them any hints? Or actually, let's save this question for later because there's some other
SSR versus
that you definitely want to see before we
get to that generation.
Claro.
Let me ask you folks one more question before we say goodbye for now. Are there any updates for Angular pre-rendering, or more important, just tell us more about just the future of SSR?
I can take that one. So, as Jessica mentioned, for the future of SSR, we are investigating streaming, HTTP streaming, and progressive hydration. Some other features that we are looking into to improve pre-rendering are the developer experience around route discoverability of parameterized routes, and also exclusion of routes from static site generation. Yeah, those are the main things that we're gonna look into.
All right, well, thank you so much to Alon, Jessica, and Andrew. Thank you all for hanging out. It has been a blast. Now, if you haven't already, please be sure to enter your questions into the chat for the Angular team. Now, as a reminder, these updates will be available when Angular v17 launches later this week on November 8th. Angular templates are at the core of the component development experience. And when we're introducing some updates that will change the way that you write your Angular templates, things are about to get awesome. Alex Rickabaugh is here to tell you more.
I'm Alex from the Angular team, and I'm here to share some big news about the component authoring experience in Angular. We want to make writing components in Angular an enjoyable and productive experience. And we've been hard at work trying to find the next step in achieving that goal, and we think we found it. We're giving you new ways to write some of the logic in your template. I'm thrilled to introduce the new control flow syntax in Angular. This new syntax gives you new options for how you write if statements, for loops, and switch statements. We think this new syntax makes reading logic in templates easier, as well as writing it. And we didn't stop there. We've also included many highly requested features, such as else if. And we're improving the performance of key parts of control flow. So what will this new syntax look like? I thought you'd never ask. First, let's check out the new if syntax. The template keywords for control flow start with an @ symbol that tells Angular this is a control flow statement. Next comes the keyword if. This looks a lot like a JavaScript if statement, which should be more familiar to developers. Next comes the condition in parentheses, followed by opening and closing braces, which make it easier to group multiple elements together without the need for ng container. Compared to the ngIf-based syntax, we find the new syntax is clearer, more robust, and easier to reason about. But can we do better? Yes. There's also support for else without the need for ng templates and variables. But why stop there? We're also introducing support for else if syntax. Now you can specify multiple conditional statements to fit your component's rendering needs. We've also included new for loop syntax. Check this out. The @for looks very similar to a TypeScript for loop. We're maintaining similar syntax for your iterables. But we're adding an important performance change. Track is now required. This will help your loops be faster and more efficient. To make this easier, track now lets you specify an expression directly. No more track by functions. You can also specify a fallback when there are no items in the list with the new @empty syntax. No need for fancy template magic, just clean, readable code. We've optimized the implementation considerably. @for is up to 90% faster when processing certain list updates. I bet some of you were wondering if we did anything to improve situations using switch. And the answer is yes. You can use the new @switch syntax to write clear, robust switch statements directly in your templates. With similar syntax as if and for, you specify the expression, then use the @case syntax to specify the clauses. And just like switch statements in JavaScript, you can use the @default keyword for your default case. You can try these new features in developer preview in Angular v17. We can't wait for you to use them and let us know what you think. So be sure to ng update once v17 is released. Until the next time, happy coding.
The new control flow will definitely improve the template authoring experience, and honestly, we think you're really
Gabriel
going to
dice,
enjoy
también
this
me parecía al
update.
principio un
Now,
poco
here
feo,
to tell
pero
us
cada vez
more
que la
are
leo
Pavel,
de nuevo
Christian,
me
and
voy
Alex
acostumbrando.
from the Angular team.
Sí,
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing?
Fantastic, Mark.
What an
Alex,
amazing
bueno,
moment.
está
So
contento
we
si lo
launched
puso del
the
todo.
new brand today, and now
Metió
we're launching
signals
this
y ahora
new
el template flow.
syntax that I feel like
¿Cómo
is
no
a
está
great
contento?
representation of
Sí,
what we're doing as a
definitivamente Alex,
team
una
and
de
where
las
Angular is going
mentes
in terms of
maestras
being
detrás
modern.
de
But
toda
how
esta
did we
nueva
know as a team that it was time for this
evolución
new
de
syntax?
Angular.
Right, so I think there were many things that made
Bueno,
us
y
prioritize
Powell
this
también,
project.
Powell, para que no conoces, el que está hablando
we
ahora.
have this perspective of people
Carlos,
using
el chat dice que nunca usó el
NG4
switch.
and NG
Probablemente no lo
directives,
usó
and
porque
we
no
see
era
some
usable.
issues on the GitHub and in conversation with
No, porque no
developers,
se le dice...
we see some friction. The star syntax, for example,
Era
is not
elegible.
well understood and sometimes a bit quirky. So we knew that we could improve the template authoring experience with the built-in syntax. Standalone components were other motivating factor here. As of today, you have to import ng and g4 in almost every component, and this can get tedious. If we've got built-in control flow, we can remove the question of imports entirely. Finally, having the built-in control flow gives us more opportunities to optimize things when integrating signals and reactivity in the framework. As the example, the for loop can understand that it deals with signals and optimize change detection there. I think that overall, it was a great experience for us. We had this opportunity of reviewing the entire process of authoring templates and control flow and look at syntax, but also at performance and type checking.
Sí, se parece.
Gran comentario de Rafa.
To be honest with you, when you think about this in combination with standalone components, it makes a lot of sense because, like you said, you have to import NG4,
la opinión de Besael,
like all
que él
those things
dice
make
que
it harder to read about
Nest.js
for our learners.
PHP.
So I love this
Esto ya lo he
for that
oído
reason. But check this out. I know, leading up to this, as people saw the RFCs, I got a lot of questions about performance improvements. What is changing in terms of performance with this new syntax? Alex, can you tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple different performance improvements that we unlocked with the new syntax. One of the kind of lesser obvious ones to think about is because for and if and switch are built into the framework, they don't have to go through the same public APIs that structural directives like ngIf and ng4 do. They can kind of interact at a very low level with Angular's data structures. And so we got rid of some overhead there. But then most of the performance improvements were centered around the for loop. So we rewrote the logic that figures out the kind of what changes need to happen in the DOM to reflect the changes that you made in the list. And we made that algorithm much smaller and smarter. For example, it understands when you swap two items in a list now, which was a case that showed up on the benchmarks that we followed, where ng4 didn't do so well. Obviously, these are synthetic benchmarks, so the numbers and applications vary, but we've seen about, in real material components, about a 30% performance improvement in components that are pretty control flow heavy. And it consumes less memory as well. And then finally, you saw me in the video earlier talk about the track being required. That's another kind of key performance optimization where we saw if developers forgot to put that in certain circumstances, they could like code themselves into a performance bottleneck. And so we make that mandatory, but also make it easier to specify to avoid those cases.
Para sus demos, yo diría que el equipo de Angular usa Angular.
Christian, I got a question for you.
Para sus proyectos.
This is new syntax, right? But what if I'm just not ready to update yet, right? I just can't use it. I want to use v17, but I can't use the syntax. What can I do?
Yep. So the new syntax is completely optional, so you can kind of try it out in different places, see how you like it. You don't need to
con internet 3G desde
but if you do want to convert
en una isla
we have
paradisíaca,
an experimental migration that you can run. You just need to run ng-generate at angular/core control flow, and that's going to convert your entire app to the control flow, and that's also going to give you some examples where you can kind of see how the new syntax works and see what works best for you.
O sea que para v17 necesitas un flag en apagado para no usar el sintaxis.
Well, I love that. That sounds really great. Let's take some feedback from our community.
Igual debe ser que no es.
Right. So can you still use pipes in the new control? Great
y supongo por el render.
Can you still use pipes in the control flow?
El render.
Absolutely, like every syntax, expression syntax that was supported in conditionals or like loops, they still.
Mira, les pregunto si podemos
I think would be really helpful for the community. We'll work to put together some examples to show
ya
folks
no van igual.
how they can use that
funcionan con
combination.
signos.
That'd be really helpful.
Claro. Pero van a ir muriendo, ¿no? O sea, al fin y
No
al cabo
existen
los
los
pipes,
pipes.
porque...
Does the new control flow
Los
syntax
pipes
¿para qué va a querer?
cambiado.
or I think they meant
Sí,
async
rip
pipe in this
pipes,
case.
¿no? Como
Yeah,
el
I
rip
think
scope en su
people might be
momento.
referring to the common pattern of using as like async pipe with if and as just to kind of alias or create a local variable. And we absolutely added this feature so people can move from the existing common usage patterns to the new control flow.
All right, we're going to wrap this up, but I got one last question for you folks. What is something that developers should do today with this new feature?
Give it a try straight away. Like giving all the improvements in the syntax and performance improvements, I think the faster we get the feedback and kind of iron out all the rough edges, the sooner we'll enjoy it.
Fantastic. All right, friends, thank you to Alex, Pavel, and Christian. You folks have been fantastic. Thank you so much. And also thank you to the Angular community for all these questions and comments.
Podríamos decir que
Now,
estos
lazy
tres
loading
son el
in
nuevo
Angular has
core de
been a
Angular,
great
¿no?
way to optimize your
Pero no
application
hablaron de
by
defer.
allowing you to delay the loading of certain
Porque el
parts
defer es una...
of your app until
guarda,
when? Till the
defer
meeting.
es una cosa
But what if I told
y
you that we could go
el
even
syntax flow
further
es
and
otro.
do even better with the
Es lo mismo,
lazy
pero no es
loading
lo mismo.
experience? Well, I guess you'll just
No
have
sé
to
por qué lo
watch this next
separaron, debe tener
announcement
alguna
to
lógica.
find out if we did. Jessica, take it away.
Sí, porque empapa más todo el tema de lazy loading, pero claro, pensé que lo iba a mencionar aquí.
Let me just move this placeholder out of the way.
Placeholder.
And now that I'm in your viewport, let's talk about native Angular deferred loading. Also, hi, I'm Jessica
Ahí está.
Janik,
Mira,
a
viste,
senior
tenía
software
enseguida.
engineer on the Angular framework team. Angular has supported native deferred loading of individual routes for some time now, and this is a great way to reduce your initial bundle size. However, if you've wanted to optimize your initial load and initial bundle size even further, your options have been limited. Defer loading individual components has not been an ergonomic experience and required advanced skills and a significant amount of code to make possible. We opened an RFC, a request for comment, with our vision for deferred loading, and you all loved it. Since then, we've been hard at work building this new feature, and we're proud to say that v17, the new deferred block, is available as a developer preview. That's right.
Cuidado,
You don't have to await anymore to see this promise resolved. Let's take a quick look at how you can make use of this in your applications. Defer works in your components template and allows you to separate out chunks of content that you'd like to be deferred loaded.
Las slides o el...
Here's an example.
Ha habido un trabajo de
You love
imagen bueno.
referenced in a section of your template that we'd like to load later so that they're not part of the initial bundle. Using Angular's new block syntax for templates, we'll add a new defer block around the area of the content we'd like to defer load. And don't worry, it's non-blocking. Each defer block requires a condition or trigger to specify exactly when deferred loading happens. You can use these triggers with the new on clause. Let's load the large when a specific element enters the viewport.
Punto final.
Defer on viewport will trigger the fetching of your content once the provided element reference enters the viewport. Angular provides several built-in triggers for you to use in applications.
Sí, de hecho tiene mucho sentido de
idle
la nueva
to load as
sintaxis
soon as your browser reports
para
it's
que
in
esto sea
idle
para que
state.
esto funcione.
Interaction to load whenever something is clicked on, focused, or similar behavior. Viewport to load when the content enters the client's viewport window. Hover to load when the mouse is hovering over an area.
Creo que está increíble.
Timer to load after a specific timeout. And immediate to defer load right away after the defer block is rendered. You can use one of these triggers with an on clause. Here's an example. We're going to go with defer on viewport. What if one of the built-in triggers doesn't provide the functionality you need? Well, you can create a custom trigger. You can use the new when clause to provide whatever condition works for your application. In this example, once the when condition becomes true, the deferred loading is triggered. You can also mix and match to provide the exact conditions you're looking for. This affords you the perfect flexibility for your application.
Está genial.
What if you'd like to prefetch your dependencies?
Está bueno que te den la
Well,
posibilidad de que
Defer
puedas
has
crear
your
tus
back.
propios triggers. Está
Just
buenísimo.
add prefetch on using one of the already mentioned triggers. Or similarly, you can provide a custom condition using prefetch when, and your deferred dependencies will be prefetched.
Aquí tiene mucho
That's
sentido.
not all we have for you, though. The new defer blocks also offer several additional areas for you to provide content that will show in various phases of your defer loading.
Y eso la performance va para arriba,
For
obviamente.
example, perhaps you want to show a placeholder before your deferred content loads. You can add that to the at placeholder
Básicamente todo esto,
section
Carlos,
of
va
the
a mejorar la
defer block.
performance. O sea, esto
Maybe
más
you'd like to
el
show a loading
counterflow,
spinner while the
si lo
content
haces
is
bien,
actively being fetched.
si lo
You
haces
can do
bien.
that too with the
Que
at
puedes
loading
mejorar la performance sin tener esos grandes
spinner.
conocimientos de tener que hacer el truco que se hacía antes, lo de
For both of these,
easy
you
loading
can
con
specify a minimum amount
estrategias y
of
cosas
time
así.
these templates are shown to prevent flickering in the case that the loading is
No soy el
super
image
fast.
optimizer de Angular acá, ¿eh?
The at loading template lets you also add a
Y siento
max
que ya
length
lo
of
mencionaron en
time
la
to wait
14,
before
no sé.
showing the
No
loading
han hecho
template.
mucho
That way,
ruido.
if your server responds super fast, the loading template wouldn't
Sí,
show
es una
at
release muy
all.
fuerte. La verdad que sí. Es
And
una
if
release
anything goes wrong,
grande.
we
Por eso,
have a
digamos,
place for that too.
Es Angular 3.
The at error template.
Todos lo sabemos.
No.
Testing a defer block is a breeze
Polémico
too.
comentario, Raúl,
We've
pero
provided a
sí.
deferred testing fixture that will
es
let
que
you manually cycle
arrancó Emma
through
diciendo no es
a
Angular
defer
3 como
block's
dicen algunos.
phases so you can
Es Angular
verify at
3.
each step of the way that
Y
your
lo digo y
defer
lo
block
repito.
is configured exactly how you want. It's built right into the component fixture, so you'll feel right at home in the test environment.
Defer testing me
It certainly
encanta,
won't test
Esto.
your patience. Angular v17's new defer blocks offer you the
Es verdad
ultimate
que
in
cambia mucho el
flexibility to
templating,
defer loading
lo que es el
whatever
código de
content
test
you want.
tampoco cambiará
You can
tanto.
now optimize your
No.
initial load and bundle size to your heart's content. You can
Lo que
try
sí
out the
queremos muchas
developer
cosas en el
preview of our
template
defer
ahora.
blocks right now with the v17
Ahora quiero una remera de
release.
Angular 3.
For more details
Angular
and all the
3 es real.
documentation,
Rápidamente,
check out
tomo
our
una
brand
foto con
new
él.
deferred loading guide. What's the best way to use these defer blocks? Well, to answer that, I defer to you.
Es buena
Live
esa.
long and prosper, my friends.
Buen final. Me encantó el final, Mis aplausos.
Muy bien, Jessica, muy bien.
Okay. All right. Just a moment of transparency. I just love how we get to share like these fantastic updates, but still bring a little bit of humor like while we're doing so. It's really, really great. So let's keep that energy going and welcome Jessica and Andrew back to the show.
Hello.
All right. So
Se
let's
puso
see
su-
if Andrew's audio is still deferred.
Hey, Mark. Hey,
Oh,
Martin. Hey,
he's
everyone.
back. Fantastic.
Ahora
We got-
mira,
we
volvió
see
para
the
hablar. Ahora
placeholder
sí.
in the building with Jessica. That's fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful video. Okay, let's jump right in. Andrew, since we didn't get to hear from you last time, what's the difference between deferrable views and lazy loading?
Yeah, so it's more about semantics. So defer and lazy basically means the same thing, but we prefer to use defer.
Oh, fantastic. All right, let me follow up with you, Andrew. Is the load
En
of
el
the
momento correcto.
component
Ching.
blocking when you're
Sí, sí,
using
sí.
deferrable views?
O sea, sí, pero no.
No,
le dijo.
it's not blocking. When using different template, Angular compiler generates dynamic imports under the hood, which are invoked at runtime when your trigger condition is invoked.
Yeah, just remember that they're just blocks, non-blocking blocks, blocks that are non-blocking.
All right, Jessica. Actually, since you jumped in with that fun pun, I got something for you. Does this technology open up the door for anything else? Because this is really robust as it is, but I know everyone's been asking us about the future. What does this open the door for us as a team?
Well, we talked a little bit about progressive hydration back in the server-side rendering section, and the defer blocks are really the logical place for us to focus on for enabling progressive hydration next. So that's like the top thing that we can probably think of doing with defer blocks moving forward.
Okay, so let me follow up another question for you, Jessica. Some folks have expressed the desire to create their own custom triggers. How can they do that?
Well, they can certainly do that with the when clause that we have. They can just add a when clause and put whatever condition they want in there, and that essentially serves as a custom trigger.
Fantastic. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. The chat is blowing up with questions for you, friends. So let's just jump to our community questions. All right, Jeremy says, I enjoy learning more about how this works under the hood. How does the defer block know when something is actually loading or errored or similar?
Es buena pregunta.
Andrew, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So as I mentioned, when defer block is used in the template, Angular compiler collects all the dependencies used within the block. And after that, Angular compiler produces a set of dynamic imports. And at runtime, those dynamic imports are invoked when the trigger condition is invoked as well. So this is kind of in a nutshell what happens.
Fantastic. I really love this technology. I think it's magic. People have told me to rein back some of my excitement, but I think it's magic. Let's go to another question. Okay. Michael asks, how do you find out in your parent component when a certain component in a defer has loaded? Jessica, is this a thing we can do at this point?
What I'm unclear of with this question is like whether it's talking about within, because like the defer lives in the template. So you're in a component, you put the defer block in the template. So it's not like it's a parent component. So your child components won't actually exist until they've been defer loaded. So the child wouldn't be able to report anything or do anything until it's actually been fetched and resolved.
Are there any hooks or triggers or anything that we can know about in our template, or sorry, in our component that has a defer block to let us know that it's ready to be interacted with at least? Anything like that?
At present, there isn't. I believe there was some commentary on looking for that kind of notification in the RFC. So that's definitely an area where we could potentially add new features in the future.
Me perdí ahí. ¿No es como un ngIf al fin y al cabo? ¿Y el child se ejecuta o no se ejecuta?
No, porque el tema es que carga el componente como línea cero al final, es un módulo. Entonces, el módulo está chunqueado, es decir, no está en el bundle final.
Claro, y ahí está el problema.
Con el defer te está cargando ese componente en concreto. El JS, el JS, el JavaScript, ese componente te lo está cargando, el template y todo.
Me perdí esa parte por andar tuiteando.
La diferencia con el defer, sí. Es la caña que tiene el defer. De hecho,
claro.
Al principio.
Fantastic. Yeah, I remember one of the things that we wanted to fit into Jessica's video was even more content about testing. So yeah, we're shipping this with testing features enabled. So we thought about you, Angular community. We care about you. All right. A huge thank you to Jessica and Andrew for coming on the show. Thank you both so much for sharing these updates. Now, just a reminder, we're going to be doing a very special fireside chat with Angular leadership at the end of the show. So please keep those questions coming and keep putting them in the chat. Now, we've been giving you
Jorge André Gil.
More.
Well, believe it.
Here to tell you about more Angular V17 one and only Doug, you're up.
Por lo que dijo, los pipes se pueden usar tranquilamente. Por lo tanto,
I'm a developer on the Angular tooling team. We've shown you a lot of incredible Angular features already.
Lo conocí
but we're not done yet. Here are a few more awesome features we'd like to highlight.
Super copado.
Over the last few major versions, we've made standalone components a core part of the Angular experience. In version 17, standalone the default means of building applications. This means ng new and ng generate will now create components, directives, and pipes as standalone by default. Our documentation has also been updated to use standalone in guides and examples. We believe this will make Angular much easier to learn for new developers, with ng module being an advanced feature developers can learn about only when they actually need it. Now, don't worry, ng module isn't going away. You can still use it just like you did before. And you can even opt out of the CLI change when you need to with the standalone false flag. Next, you might recall that we've been working hard to improve build times by migrating Angular CLI from Webpack to ESBuild and Vite. These act as modern bundling and dev serving tools with a special focus on performance.
Welcome.
We're happy to announce that this is now enabled by default for new applications, yielding major build time improvements. As one example, The Angular material documentation site was recently updated and received 2.5 times faster builds. That's just mind-boggling. However, if you have a custom Webpack configuration, you won't see these benefits. Now, Webpack isn't going away in version 17, so you can continue to use it. However, we highly recommend moving to the new ESBuild-based build system for faster compiles, performance optimizations, and future improvements. For Angular Dev Tools, we've launched a new way to inspect and visualize your dependency injection graph. Have you ever wondered why some injection token wasn't found, or maybe why two components aren't sharing the same instance of a service? DevTools is here to help you understand your dependency graph so you can inject more confidently. Keep an eye out on the Angular YouTube channel for a video deep dive of how you can debug dependency injection like a pro with Angular DevTools. Angular inputs have received some updates as well. You can now add custom transforms which update values as they are received as inputs. This allows components to accept a wider variety of inputs and then normalize them to a standard type. In this case, we're using the built-in Boolean attribute transform on an input called disabled to convert its value to a Boolean. This makes the input much easier to use. We no longer need to manually bind disabled to a Boolean literal. Instead, we can just set the attribute directly. It's so much cleaner. We also have a built-in number attribute for converting to numbers, and you can even create your own transforms. The only limit is your imagination. Next, we've added yet another great quality of life improvement for authoring CSS. In the past, Angular has always required component styles to be given as an array, because a component can technically have multiple style sheets. However, in practice, we've found that it's pretty rare for a single component to actually use multiple style sheets. I know I've never needed it. The array is unnecessary, adds visual noise, and can cause trouble for automated formatting tools. In version 17, Angular will now accept styles without an array, so you can just pass your string literal in directly. Both styles and a new property called style URL, singular, now accept a string directly. No more awkward array literals. If you do use multiple style sheets in a component, don't worry, arrays still work exactly like before. The only difference is that you don't need an array if you don't want it. Now, believe me, I could go on about even more awesome features in Angular version 17 and coming soon. However, that's all the time I have. You can find out more at blog.angular.io. The most important part to remember is to get all this goodness, all you have to do is run ng update. You'll get all these incredible features, performance optimizations, and bug fixes with minimal effort. Thanks for joining me on this whirlwind tour of Angular features in version 17. Don't forget the ng update. Try them out for yourself. See you next time.
Whoa. Okay, honestly, can you believe that that is actually not the entire list of updates that we're shipping with this release? So be sure to check out the release blog and the release notes on GitHub for more information. But friends, right now we have Doug and Miles from the Angular team here to chat about this release and more. Welcome, Doug and Miles.
Yeah, really happy to be here.
Qué guapa la camiseta del Dino.
So much is happening. New brand, new syntax. With nothing but updates. I mean, it's just so much. So with that in mind, it's just so many things that people could use right now when it releases. What is a feature that you think that they should do as your favorite? Like, call out a feature.
I guess I think I'm going to cheat a little bit by picking one feature that's actually two features.
Okay.
I'm going to pick Application Builder, which I think, on some of the earlier videos talked about. I think it's super cool because it's providing the ESBuild and Vite improvements we've been talking about for massive build time improvements, as well as also making it really easy to adopt server-side rendering and a lot of the improvements that we've seen there around hydration, all of those awesome features. So I think it's really cool that we sort of have this one builder that is sort of serving as a vehicle to provide both of these use cases, and I think that's really powerful.
Agree. What about you, Miles? Any feature that you want to call out?
I'm a big fan of the new control flow. I gotta say that's one of the coolest things I think is going to be able to take out all the star ngF and star ngFors in my components.
I'll be honest with you. When I have been like researching it and looking at the RFC and doing all these parts, I just feel like looking at that syntax.
Trabajamos un año para esto nada
más. And it really is beautiful. I agree with that. So one of the things that people like to do is make their applications beautiful. And one way they do that is with material. Now, you being on the material/components team, can you share an update on what's the latest for that space?
Yeah. So in version 17, we've got a couple big changes. Probably the biggest one is that we are now removing the legacy components that have been in there for a couple of releases now. I know that not everyone is 100% moved off of those yet, and so we are going to support using version 17 of Angular, so you can still get like all this awesome new goodness while still using version 16 of Angular material if you still need those legacy components. And then also in version 17, we've added a new dimension to our theming. So, I'm sure you're familiar with the color typography density that we support. Now we've added a base as well, and base is kind of just for common things across the design system that aren't necessarily related to one of those other three. So like border radiuses would be a good example of what goes in there.
Wow, so we're taking to the next dimension. Okay, I'll stop. Actually, so while the video was playing, the comments and questions were flooded with so many questions. So I'd love to take some for the audience if you folks are up to answer some questions. All right, let's take some feedback from the audience. Will the standalone flag still exist in the component decorator for standalone components?
Yes, the flag is still there. You do still need to set it. However, this is kind of the thing that the Angular CLI is setting for you. So when you ng generate, it's going to put that standalone true for you. So for all intents and purposes, you really don't need to worry about it. It is still there. Maybe in the future we might be able to clean that up.
Que quieres a que en una versión futura igual la venta standalone será true por defecto y ya no tendrás.
All right. Did the Webpack section get deprecated? Good question about Webpack and deprecated, because we did move to.
Se le acabó el curro al pana,
So
pana.
There's a little bit more here, meaning that
a crear un nuevo shell que el de Webpack no sirve.
Or will Webpack be around more time to be that? This is a forward-looking question because we're on v17 right now.
Yeah, so I think what he's kind of saying is that when we deprecate things, usually there's a couple major versions, and then eventually remove them. So currently, Webpack Builder is still supported, still fully active. Nothing's broken there. It's also not quite yet deprecated. So we've sort of promoted the new ES build.
v17 nos vamos en Disney.
We're kind of making that the new default. If you ng new a new application, you're going to get ES build and Vite out of the box. And so that's kind of where we're going. We sort of have this new alternative that's improving things. We want to push people towards that. The old stuff is still available, still accessible, and it's not quite deprecated yet. Going forward, that we do want to continue to push the community more towards ES build and Vite. So you will continue to see more of that going forward. And long term, Webpack will likely eventually be deprecated in Angular CLI, but that is still going to be some versions of it. So it's not an immediate challenge.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks for that feedback. All right, let's take another one from the audience.
Ya está en Angular ahora.
Material V3, question of the hour. Tell us more.
I knew we were going to get
Material V3.
So the changes that we made in version 17 here are kind of in support of being able to do Material 3 soon, hopefully in a minor of 17. So yeah, keep an eye out for it soon. We are working on it.
We're working on it. That's right. And that's how we work, right? We try to do our best to make things that will support our community and that we can make those updates when they're ready. So that way you have just a less hard time upgrading, right? We really care about our developer community, which I think is one of our hallmarks.
Exactly. We don't want to push something out before it's ready.
That's right. That's right. Man, fantastic. Thanks to both of you. And
la semana que viene nos podemos juntar a charlar sobre este video, ¿no?
I just want to hear more questions, comments from the audience. I want to hear some of that feedback because I know that everyone's really excited. The new brand does it for me. It was move.
Claro.
I agree. I love the new brand. I remember when they first got previewed. It was just absolutely beautiful. So, yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. DI debugging. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. Dependency injection debugging is one of those like small but huge. It's a small announcement, but a huge impact on the developer quality of life. Because one of the things you need to do is know where something's coming from in your dependency injection tree, right? You just want to know, is it coming from the component? Is it an environment injector? You want to know the difference. So being able to visualize that is going to change the game for your debugging experience.
Así mismo.
All right. Let's go Angular team. Let's go Angular community.
Si no te está cerrando,
We're working on all this cool stuff.
Estamos los mensajitos de
serve you. Like you folks
muchas
are the
gracias.
Audience, the intended audience of all of it. We're really building it to serve you and community. So let's go you for being who you are. All right, friends. Very special.
Mark.
All right, so here in the studio we have
habla
our
español.
engineering manager.
Habla con él.
We also have
our
DevRel lead, Minko.
Ahí está, apareció Minko.
Minko and Simona
Y Simona.
Simona Cotin, sí. Bellísima.
How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing excellent. This has been such an incredible event. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm glad you're happy to be here because we have a bunch of questions for both of you.
So
let's keep the energy going. There was not a video update.
Dios mío, al fin.
Can you share what the latest is?
Seguro que mañana Minko pega vacaciones un mes.
Mark, thank you so much.
PTO
definitely, I'm happy to share what the latest is. So Angular Signals is one of the largest changes that we have made to the fundamentals of Angular and some of the recent history. And in order to ensure backwards compatibility and also interoperability with Zone.js-based change detection, we have been prototyping and designing a path forward so that we can bring everyone along and we can have everyone benefit from this new reactivity system. So in V17, we're stabilizing the public APIs for both signals and computed. And we've also shipped improvements to change detections, as some of you have already noticed in the YouTube comments. When you're using signals inside on-push components trees, only components that have changed will be marked for check and then change detected. And as a next step, we're also prioritizing working on signal inputs and improving the zoneless experience, and eventually working towards signal components as they are described in the request for comments that we published on GitHub a while back.
Fantastic. Let's stay on the same line of thought about signals. All right. So, Minko, one of the things that I've noticed that people ask about, should they migrate from observables to signals? What's the story there?
Yeah, good question. So both of them, they have their own use cases. Observables, they're great for processing a synchronous stream of events. So if you have, let's say, a stream of WebSocket messages, observables are great. And signals are perfect for managing your component state. They have, or will have, very close, very tight integration with the framework. And there will be a lot of benefits. With more local and fine-grained
signals para
okay, Minko, I want to stay with you for a second. There's something, a big announcement today.
Y en cambio, observables para
brand, new website, everything. Are we building a new framework?
Yeah.
Yo creo que básicamente lo que quieren hacer es dejar HTTP solamente con RxJS y en la V20, mirá que me juego, en V20 lo sacan por fetch.
Months or so, we have been shipping a lot of improvements and bringing everyone along for the ride. At the same time, we have the Angular brand that has been very much the same since 2010 or so. We have this red Angular shield. What we want to do is to just bring the brand along and update it to fit this future-looking framework that Angular
Fantastic. All right. Once again, the comments are on fire. Lots of questions for you and Simona. So we're going to take some questions from our community. All right, so are there any plans to bring together HTML, CSS, JS/TypeScript files into a single file instead of keeping them separate? Minko, why don't you take this one?
Sure, yeah. They're kind of together right now. If you build an Angular component, you can use inline styles, inline HTML, and everything is just going to work.
No, está hablando de hacer single file component.
Yeah, I think so. Christy, so you can't do this now. So if you're not doing that, if it's not working for you, open the issue so we can know and we can better support you.
Pero se puede.
All right, let's do another question. All right. Simona, will the new docs support multi-language and translations?
I suspect that Minko might actually be the right person to answer this question.
Sure, Minko, tell us more.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So currently we have Angular.io, and there are a bunch of fantastic community members for maintaining different localized versions of Angular.io. With Angular.io, we kind of made it really hard for them to do it.
Bueno, lo hizo Coso.
They have to maintain their own clone of Angular.io and just keep track of each individual change that we're making. For Angular.dev, we have way more exciting plans that are going to just make it way simpler for the community to maintain this localized story.
Bueno, Angular Latam también, ¿no? Angular Lat.
So there are plans for this, and keep in mind that Angular.dev is in beta right now. We're going to be graduating it in the next 6 months. This is coming along as well.
Okay, fantastic. Before we go to any more community questions, there's one that was asked before to me, like at conferences that I was at recently, that Simona, I would love to answer for it because we have a lot of exciting avenues, right? So we saw what happens with the new block syntax, SSR, signals. There's so many things for us to explore. How is the team, how are we sure what to work on next?
That is such a great question, Mark. And it is something that we actually ask ourselves and we work through. And we have thought a lot about what are our guiding principles, what are our values, and why we do the things that we do, and when should we work on those things. And I think it starts first with what our focus is. And currently our focus is uncompromising developer experience and blazing fast performance. So whenever we plan our roadmap and prioritize projects, we actually make sure that they fit into these buckets. And as guiding principles, we strive to make evidence-driven decisions, and we tackle problem spaces that are rooted into user feedback. And we gather that input in many, many ways, both from existing Angular developers, but also from future Angular developers, like some of you here on the stream. And the ways in which we gather that input is either through our annual developer survey, through GitHub issues. We run user research studies. We meet regularly with our Google developer experts and talk about our roadmap and feedback on features. We run customer roundtables. And we also work very closely with teams like Chrome Aurora and Chrome DevTools and collaborate on projects that are based on some of our shared research. Another dimension to this that is really important is that the framework is built on a solid foundation. So when possible, we actually tackle some of the technical debt that we've accrued. And this enables us to continuously iterate and innovate and continue to do some of these research projects that we're working on as well.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. I love the feature of Angular. Mingo, did you have anything you want to add to that, or?
Everything that Simona said.
A ver cuánta gente había, ¿eh?
Complete and
fantastic. Let's take another community
4K
question. How about Module Federation? I laugh, not because this is a bad question, because people ask us this quite a bit. Module Federation and Angular integration, should we expect any updates? Mingo, I know something that you spent some time on. Tell us more.
Yeah,
no información
it is very unlikely to support Module Federation directly in the Angular CLI. Now, the problem there is that Module Federation has some kind of very unpredictable side effects that you can hit very easily because of this dynamic composition of your user interface. At the same time, we realize that many organizations, they have certain constraints that are not technical, and they don't allow them to build their application as a whole, like holistic experience, and they need to work in isolation. That is why we want to enable Module Federation or micro frontends in general in the Angular CLI. So far, it has been possible through Manfred Steyer's Module Federation plugin. And now we're working together with him on enabling this for ESBuild and Vite as well with native federation.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. All right. We're just about out of time, but I do have one more question for Simona. What will be the team's priorities moving forward?
That's a really big question. And Mark, as you've seen, we've worked on a lot of things, and we've shipped quite a bit as part of this release. So one of the biggest priority, I would say the biggest P0 that we have right now is get a bit of rest. So that was the first step. But as we're looking towards next projects, we're definitely looking towards completing and working towards signal-based components. We are continuing to improve the server-side rendering and pre-rendering experience. We're doing explorations like partial hydration and streaming, and even looking into resumability. We've laid the strategy for unit testing, and we have shipped experimental support for Jest. We're also working on experimental support for Web Test Runner, and we're continuing to work towards stabilizing some of those features. As Miles has mentioned, we're very, very close to completing support for Material 3, and the team has done such incredible work on that, and we're excited for that as well. And along all of these, maybe some of the major blocks that I've been talking through, we also have a bunch of quality of life improvements that we're constantly prioritizing so that we're reducing some of those friction points as folks are building Angular apps.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to both of you for being on the show today.
Yep. Se ha parado el vídeo.
It has been fantastic to talk with you. And all right, everyone, that's
me cayó un poco la conexión. Por eso me había
bajado,
bajado, pero se cayó del todo.
Team, and honestly, thank you to you, the Angular community, for being just a part of this. Because you know what? A framework is only as strong as its community. And we have a fantastic one filled with amazing contributors and developers like you. Angular v17 will be available on November 8th, so be sure to download it as soon as it goes live. Be sure to check out angular.dev right now. Do that, like, seriously. Right after the stream, go straight there. Also, check out the release blog and NG update later this week when the release is available. Friends, we will see you the next time, and go build great apps.
Bueno.
Muy bien.
Perfecto.
Hermoso evento, de verdad. Ahora, el que no haga NG update, no entendió nada.
Látigo. Igual faltan 2 días.
Ahora mismo.
Gracias a todos por venir a verlo.
Voy a vender mi nueva playera, franela.
Tu nueva playera, sí. Que no. Tenés algo ahí blanco igual, ¿eh? 3.
Sí, un 3.
Un 3, supuesto.
Y bueno, podemos quedar para la semana que viene, después arreglamos en privado, pero para charlar más de esto, ¿no? Hicimos una watch party, estuvo linda. Y bueno, nos vemos la próxima, seguramente la semana que viene.
Sí.
Nos vemos despacio y
todos
ahora que la gente pruebe.
Así que bueno, gente,
Romper
gracias
cosas
por
ahora.
estar acá.
Venga,
Nos vemos.
chao, hasta luego.
Nos vemos, chao.
Chao.